Hello. I wanted to address another question that I get quite often from new or inquiring clients, and that is what to do when your partner doesn't want to go to therapy. Now, this is a lot more common than you might expect. There's a lot of reasons why people don't want to go to therapy. Um, for a lot of folks, the thing that I encounter most often, at least with people that are a little hesitant to come to therapy, is because they've never been before. They've never experienced it. They have no idea what it's going to be like. And it's totally a black box, a complete mystery. And they can fill that mystery with maybe what they've seen on television, horror stories they've heard from friends or read online, and it's intimidating. You walk in as a person you've never met that maybe has advanced education, and you don't know what, like, it can feel like an interrogation, especially when your partner is really wanting you to go for a specific reason of theirs. So it's very normal for people to be concerned or hesitant about going to therapy, that have never been before. Another reason why people might not want to go to therapy is because they had a bad experience with it, right? Whether that was a previous relationship or their first individual experience. I know my first individual experience with therapy was not great. So I can totally appreciate why people would be concerned about going to therapy because of that. So one thing I would say, if your partner doesn't want to go to therapy, just allow that to be okay, right? You're not going to get very far trying to convince them, based on, obviously you feel good about wanting to go to therapy. You're not going to convince them just based on your own perspective. It might be interesting to just be curious with them and ask, like, what are you worried about happening? Is there any concerns you have specifically? And try to talk to whatever therapist you're going to meet with about some of those concerns. That's a valid thing to do, right? Therapists, we're used to this, right? This is not unusual for a person to not want to come to therapy, and we're not offended by the questions. So I would just encourage you to try to be curious with them. And one thing I would say is that you're really not going to get anywhere with forcing somebody to come to therapy or putting an ultimatum, right, on therapy, because the therapy what you're wanting to get out of it, the therapy is just not going to happen with that kind of hostile environment. Your partner needs to feel like this is a safe, good place for them too. And if they don't, then nothing good's going to happen out of therapy. Therapy's not like going to a surgeon or something where they're gonna, no matter how the person's not knocked out while it's happening, you need a active, willing participant, and that's what you want your partner to be, right? If you're inviting them into this space. So that's kind of the beforehand, maybe what could encourage them to come to therapy. For a lot of people, sometimes if they can talk to the therapist ahead of time, do a phone consult or something, helps them feel a lot more at ease. And I found that to be helpful. And I think that the big thing maybe that would be important to think about, what I've found to be the most important thing, is that beyond just getting them into the office, it's how you behave in the office, the person that wants to come to therapy, right? Because if it becomes clear right away that you want to be in therapy, they don't, they're going to feel even more ostracized. They need to be made more comfortable, right? Because they're new to this, or they're less comfortable with it than you are. So the one thing I would encourage you, I hear this all the time, and I always try to normalize when I hear this, but it's very common. Right when a new couple comes in, I'll ask them, hey, what brings us here? What do we want to work on? And the person that wanted to come to therapy says, well, I'm the reason we're here, or I'm the only one that wants to be here. And immediately it creates this kind of power imbalance where you're telling the therapist, or almost allying with the therapist, and saying, like, you and I get it, my partner doesn't. And that's immediately unappealing to them. They're already feeling like, I'm a step back in this whole, three-person relationship, and I have to maybe justify myself to this person I don't even know and maybe don't even like, So that's something I would encourage you not to do, right? Just say, hey, we want to work on our relationship, right? There's some things we want to improve or get better at, and that's okay. It's okay if they didn't want to come in the first place. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant once you get into the work, right? Another thing that I see sometimes is if the therapist maybe makes an observation or reflects something that you, the person that wants to go to therapy, have been saying in the past. Don't jump on that too, right? That can happen a lot, where it's like, I've been saying that for years. Oh yes, I know exactly. That kind of stuff again ostracizes the person that doesn't want to be there. If the therapy is going to be effective, it's because both of you feel like this is valuable, this is useful, we're working towards some common goals, and we're kind of a team in this. And if you kind of make it clear from the outset to your therapist, to your partner, that you are the only reason why this is happening, or kind of make it so that you're trying to kind of win over the therapist, it's just not going to go well. Your partner's not going to feel like it's worth the time. I've seen that happen very often. Things can burn out very quickly in therapy with people that are hesitant when they feel like they're getting ganged up on, right? So that's the big thing. Just try to figure out, how can we come into this? We're on an even playing field. We're both trying to get something out of this. We both have good ideas about the relationship, and let's start the conversation with the therapist from there. A big reason why I started Launch to Land in the first place was because of these kind of situations and couples like this, where maybe someone's a little hesitant about coming to therapy, whether it's just not wanting to get my head unscrewed by some therapist, not wanting to spend as much money, right? Not wanting to spend as much kind of time and energy on something I don't know is going to be useful, like that. And I think it's important to recognize I get that. I think therapists get that there's fear about that. That's okay. Launch to Land, though, my online premarital readiness course is built for couples like this. If your partner doesn't feel comfortable coming into therapy, Launch to Land is a therapeutic experience that you get to experience at home, in the comfort of your own home, at your own time, at your own pace. And that, I think, for a lot of people, addresses many of the barriers that keep them from wanting to go to therapy. So check out Launch to Land, and see if that could be a useful kind of starting point for your partner if they don't want to go to therapy. But the big thing, like I said from the beginning, don't shame them for not wanting to go to therapy. Normalize not their thoughts about not wanting to go to therapy, and make sure once you're in therapy that you don't kind of gang up on them with a therapist. That's an important thing. But and if you're watching this video and your partner wants you to go to therapy and you don't, I hear you, right? I get it, and that's okay. But there's a lot to be gained from it, right? Especially if we get at it, approach it from this kind of equal footing standpoint. I think it can be a really good thing. But if therapy's not for you, Launch to Land's a great alternative. We'll get you ready for marriage and help you take off in the marriage you want.